What is an endorsement, or what is a rider on a policy?
So when you buy an insurance policy, there are things that are built in. There are things that are not built in, but you can buy them and add them into the policy. A coverage that is never built in would be earthquake coverage. Earthquake coverage is something you can purchase at an additional cost. It has a separate deductible. It is a deductible by a percentage. So for an example would be if your home is worth $100,000 and your deductible for earthquake is 10%, your deductible is $10,000. That deductible also applies separately to your contents. So you would have a $10,000 deductible on your home, a $10,000 deductible on your contents on a $100,000 home.
So a couple that we run into all the time are sump pump endorsements and mold. And these are something, as Beth said, if they're just not there automatically. So you've got to make sure that if you have a sump pump, if you have a basement, you want to make sure that it's part of your policy.
That is an add-on, and coverage will typically start at $5,000. That's the baseline for having coverage. As you guys know, $5,000 on a water sewage loss,
Gets ate up.
it's gone.
Well, in addition to that, it's limited into what's covered.
Yes.
Like, it will only cover the cleanup. It may not cover your furniture down there.
Right.
or
You've got to make
other
sure
things.
it's
so
contents and, so it's, you need to know that it's covering both the cleanup and your contents. $5,000, which is what I see a lot of, is just,
Nowhere near
it's not enough. I mean, it might cover the cleanup, but it's not going to replace or repair.
And typically not just the repair. A lot of homes, if they have a basement, have the furnace down there.
Yeah.
And if the water floods the furnace, more than likely it's going to need to be repaired.
If you have a finished basement, let me tell you, you need to make sure that your coverage is enough. Talk a little bit how insurance perceives from a sump pump failure to flooding. We live in Louisville, which is a river city, which, we've got high water tables and that sort of thing. So water coming in that maybe isn't from sump pump failure. How does the insurance company look at that?
Well, I've always used kind of a little rule of thumb. If the water comes down from the sky and it comes through your roof, you're covered. Once it hits the ground and seeps into your home, that is flood water, and that is not covered. You would have to have a flood policy to have coverage for that. If the water comes up through a drain, you need backup of water and drain. So there's 3 areas that are covered: through the roof, through a drain, seeps in.
And then, so the other one we're talking about is mold. Mold can happen in basements, in crawl spaces, in attics, places that you very seldom go.
And that's usually where it happens, is
And that
where you usually are not at.
That's exactly right. So your policy doesn't automatically cover it. And unfortunately, it's very expensive because of the work that it takes to clean it properly.
Well, I think it depends on the circumstance of how the mold happened.
Yes.
That is the biggest factor in the timeline. Time is your enemy with mold.
Yeah.
On every front, with whether it's coverage or whether it's cleanup.
Yep.
It is your enemy, and depending on how the mold happened. So, for example, let's say you're in Florida and you had a pipe burst while you were in Florida, and because the mold happened because there was a water damage claim, that's different.
Right.
If you just have mold that has happened because there's been moisture in the air over time, that's when we start getting into issues.
So tell us, what is an umbrella policy? Who needs one?
Anyone who owns a home, I feel like anyone who owns a home.
And or you don't necessarily. I have a lot of high income earning young professionals.
Yeah.
Because what that umbrella does is protects your assets, including your future income.
Right.
Because if you're ever brought into litigation, they can come after your future income.
An umbrella policy, or they're also known as excess liability policies. So when you buy a home and an auto policy, there's a level of liability that's you buy in that policy, and most of them tend to max out at $500,000. To get more coverage, you have to buy that umbrella policy or an excess liability policy, and they start at $1 million. Through COVID, it was interesting. I guess my clients were taking more time to meet with their financials advisors, and I was getting so many calls to increase those umbrellas to $2 million and $5 million.
And the thing I'd like to say about that, it's not exactly the amount of wealth that you have, it's the assets that you have, including your retirement, including your future income, your home. You combined all of it. You know, someone says, well, I'm not worth $1 million. Well, you'd be surprised how many people are worth $1 million or more. And the point is, by putting that umbrella in place, you're protecting someone from taking it away from you. I always like to educate people.
Yes, that's my favorite thing.
I don't sell people, I educate them.
You educate them.
That's it. So the big takeaway, find a good agent.
We've got 2 great ones sitting right here. We'll have their information for you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. See you soon.
Well, if you've been helped by what we talked about today with insurance, we would ask that you would like the video and leave us a comment of something either that you learned, or maybe you've got another question. We'd love to hear those. You can leave them as comments. You can send them in and email them to us. The email is on screen and it's also in the video description. But then we'd also ask that you would subscribe to the channel. You'll get notifications every time we release a new video. And share the video with friends or family on Facebook, any of those things. We would love to get this out to more people and have them learn a little bit more along with us about insurance and about the other topics that we'll cover throughout this channel as well.